them all around. You ready, Jen? Okay.
Hello,
You go.
my name is Damien Bennett, this is Zeke Weston and Ryan Davis, and together we are Comeback Steve. And today we'll be presenting Athenry Revolt. So, big question is, what is our game? We decided to make our game around the media products Game of Thrones and World of Warcraft in order to create a MMO action-adventure RPG. The intended target audience for our game will be a 16 plus due to the content within the game itself, focusing on violence towards a realistic standard and possible drug references due to one of the classes within the game itself. Now, the next slide was originally going to be covered by Steve, so I'll quickly give a brief summary of what is to be included on this slide. Well, our research itself primarily focused on primary and secondary research in order to gather a brief outline of what our target audience is. Our results are shown on the board here with our questionnaire and then a top sort of ranking based on UGM Charts' website.
The game world. Now, the game world is based on a land called Athenry, hence the title. The name itself came from a battle that was in the 1300s in Athenry Island. Now, the world is based into 6 areas, which are 5 of which are based on the 5 factions with their own unique features and different terrain. The 6th area being a no man's land that surrounds the area that is more dangerous. We have a map up here, sketched out if you'd like to come have a look later. The narrative is about the 5 factions, which are the warriors, the hunters, the alchemists, the thieves, and the rebels. And they were once working together, and war broke out as they started to come apart. And each faction wants to claim dominance over the whole of Athenry, each for their own reasons. The warriors want the glory of the battle and winning. The hunters want to restore peace to their forests and be left alone. The alchemists want to restore peace as the hunters, except they don't get on because they believe in experimentation and experiments on humans as well. The thieves want the profit and just seek gaining wealth in the war. And the rebels want to take back their glory as they were once the leaders. The factions, as I've said, the 5 factions, each has their own sub-story in order to try and gain peace throughout the land that all link in with the main story. We have a few ideas of concepts for the characters, the top 2 being hunters, the bottom one being a warrior. We have the rest, or half of them, displayed out on this board, if you'd like to come up later. Each character has its own customization skills and can look accordingly to how you want it depending on each faction. The rebels are mainly heavy weapons and heavy armour, with their abilities to use crossbows and rally, which come from big city areas, like where they control the main place in the middle of the land. The warriors are more of the knights of old, using older styled armour and weaponry such as swords, maces, shields, and they come from castled areas with large flat lands, believing that it's better to fight an opponent up for face to face. That's why they have no trees and nothing stopping them seeing the enemy. The hunters are the archers of the land, using bows and small daggers as secondaries alike, coming from wooded areas like large forests, and they wear mainly like Robin Hood-esque clothing to keep loose and stay quick-paced with their prey, so to say. The alchemists are more slightly towards steampunk-styled healers, as they use herbs and potions with a rapier-like sword and come from cave dwellings and smaller, like, underground areas. The thieves come from city dwellings using small daggers and smaller hidden weaponry, wearing dark, tight-cut clothing to make them quick and hidden, using assassin-like skills to take down their enemy from behind.
Right, when we first started for the concept of our game, we wanted it to feel smooth. If the game can have really good graphics and good gameplay, but if it doesn't flow smoothly, it's not going to be very good. To help this, we've added things like, as the player levels up, it'll be easier for them to explore new areas. These all the areas within our map have recommended levels. If the player is below these levels, they will struggle to kill and defeat the enemies within there. Whereas the opposite way around, if you're above this recommended level, you will feel powerful. A feature we've added to our game to make it a bit unique is area dominance. This is where the player will fight against other factions to claim the territories. The advantage of doing this is you will get a higher. If you win this game mode, you will add to the game area dominated percentage. You will get a bonus from doing this. This bonus will boost your stats. It'll only last for a certain amount of time from when the player activates it, and will only last a day after you got that percentage. Once the player's leveled up to a certain level, they will unlock skill trees. Every so often throughout the levels, they will get skill points, which you can apply to these skill trees to unlock new abilities, and it will be specific abilities as well. They can also use secondary talents, which will be from other factions. So you could be a hunter and learn the alchemy side as a secondary talent, so you could do healing as well as damage. The player will start off with 2 character slots at the start of the game. They have 2 ways of unlocking more. This is either by working towards getting to the max level, or they can skip this and just buy it with real money. Multiplayer is a massive part in our game, as it is an MMO. One of the best features of ours is in-game events. These are similar to the ones in Destiny, where the player will be out doing quests, exploring the world, and a random boss will spawn near them. This will alert them and other players around this area to go and kill this boss. Because this boss is random, it could be a high-level boss or a low-level boss. The high boss will take more players to take down, but will give you better loot. As I mentioned earlier, we have area dominance. This is called Raid. What makes this game mode so unique is when you play it, it changes the world you are playing in. If you dominate that area, it becomes a safe area, and you won't be hostile to it, and the outpost won't try and kill you. A different version to this raid is called Faction Battles. This is a smaller version to it, where it is 6v6, so less players, but you'll be playing with people from your faction. However, this will not count towards your dominant area percentage. But the reason to do this is you'll gain loot and XP, so you can level up without affecting the world you're in. The next PvP game mode is called Free For All. Basically says it in its name, it's everyone versus everyone. This game mode is fought in no man's land, where there are no rules, and whichever faction you come from, it doesn't matter. The next PvP game mode is called Alliance Battles. It's part of our Alliance playlist, where you will be playing, made up of a 6v6 team deathmatch with people from other factions. This is so you can play with friends who their main character might be on a different faction, and you can make competitive teams then, as you might have a tank, healer, and DPS. And then the last multiplayer game mode is called Alliance Missions. These are co-op missions where you team together to take down AI bosses and enemies. This again is players from other factions, and it is the equivalent to dungeons in World of Warcraft. As you can see here, a basic layout of the key bindings for our game. It is keyboard and mouse, so it's PC only. We did think about how we can make it controller compatible, but we didn't think that you'd get the same experience from this. And from doing audience research, we found out that most people are on PC, so the biggest market is there as well. As you see on the right is a gaming mouse. This is just to make it, just to show that we are compatible with different type of devices. The macros are available. That's what all those buttons on the side are there for. Yep. The picture on the left is also shown over there. Is a menu, is a flowchart of our menu. This is basically how we want the players to navigate around the menu, and so they won't get lost yeah. On the right is a basic visual image of how we want our HUD to be laid out. The most important information is based within the top left-hand corner of the screen. This is because we think this is the most important, and it will always be within the player's eyesight. It won't take up too much of space, as it shows there. It will be smaller. In the bottom right-hand corner is the ammo/inventory. This is the information for your weapons. If you're a hunter, you will have the ammo count for the amount of arrows, or if you wield that kind of weapon, such as the crossbows for Revolt. For weapons such as swords and maces, it will have a durability meter. This isn't the only way you can tell if your durability is low. You'll be able to see it actually on the player's sword, so it will start to get rusty and break down. Once the durability is too low, it will be less effective, and you need to go to a blacksmith to get it repaired. The armor also plays on this feature. So when that armor starts to get low in durability, it will start to break off the character, and they'll become more uncovered, and you can see more of the flesh, sort of. And the last cooler feature is the statistic indicator. As you can see around the player, it has different statistics at the moment. That's the armor durability. This will include things such as the attack power that the player has. This is actually implemented in the game, so it isn't a pop-out menu and doesn't break immersion for the player.
Okay, the enemies in boss section was going to be originally covered with Steve, but again, I'll quickly sum up what was going to be discussed. So there's going to be 4 types of enemies in general, which you'll have the PvP, and then you have these types, which are your side bosses. These will generally appear in in-game events and as random encounters. So an example would be the Hydra here. This is a representation of a lizard with several heads, which will base surrounding ocean and mountain terrain. And as a Hydra, it'll have multiple heads spawn from their heads. Generally from this, they'll focus primarily on weakening the player, but with attacks and eventual defeat, better loot can come from this. The basic enemies will be your general enemies that are scattered around, no faction loyalty to anywhere. This can include random encounters and wildlife as such. So an example of a basic enemy would be the wolves. These would be your general pack-based enemies that will attack as a group, but will be weak. So this will probably focus better for lower level characters to level up easier, and then as higher level characters it will be minimal XP, which will reduce the time to level up. And then the final type of enemy will be faction bosses. These will appear in 2 scenarios, in either area dominance or without the story itself. So each faction themselves have a boss. and they're all listed here. And by having a faction boss, they all have their unique abilities, which makes them tougher and more generally harder to kill than the standard enemy. Now the income. As it's a free-to-play game, there needs to be some form of making money from it. So in order to do this, we've decided to add DLC, skins, in-game purchases, and focus around character slots and transfers. With the DLC, we've figured we'd focus it more around story-based elements to add more backstory or further the story. As an intended starting DLC, we was thinking of doing a storyline where it's set before all the factions separated as a group, sort of alliance-based. The rewards gained from these will not affect levels and will not become overpowered for those that don't have the DLC itself. Alongside the DLC, we've decided that we would add a season pass, which will allow the players to purchase all of the future DLCs as one rather than individual content. These skins will focus primarily on customizing the character itself, based around colours and armor, so you can change how your character is and apply a wider range of customization towards the character itself. Now the microtransactions will work more like the GTA 5 online bullshot cards, where you have different packs based around how much you want to spend. Now the money purchased within the game will focus primarily on merchants that you can find and blacksmiths. This won't make the features of a pay-to-win because the stores that you can get this stuff from will have level caps on the weapons and arms you can buy, so you don't become overpowered unless you're the right level. And then with the character slots and transfers, as Ryan mentioned earlier, you can earn them, but if you don't want to go to the high levels just to get these, you can purchase them beforehand. With the transfers, you can change where your character is. If you have one character on a server and you want to move to another character's server, you can earn it, but then you could also pay for it and then you can play with friends on different servers. Now the cutscenes within the storyline will focus on providing the information required for the player. This will include descriptions of the game type, key story elements, and character introductions. So the trigger points for these will focus on start and end of mission, game events, the starting of PvP elements, which will explain the game modes itself. Specific areas within the map with specific levels will also trigger a certain cutscene, which will allow the player to learn a bit more about the area or the enemies they'll potentially face. One more area where the cutscenes will be triggered when will be focused on key characters that come in the game. So faction bosses, first encounters with them will trigger a cutscene. Based around different factions, this cutscene will be different for each of the factions individually. So if you was a hunter and you met the hunter boss, it would more likely be triggered within a mission. Or if you was in an area dominance as, say, a rebel and you met the hunter boss, it would show like a small cutscene around showing what he's capable of. This is an example of one of the cutscenes we intend to do. We have got the example here on the board as well. But this is going to be the general hunter intro, where the character will see what the hunter is capable of, and it will end on a silhouette of the character so the player can customise the character to how they want it.
So basically, why should you invest in our game? Well, as you've seen, there are many points to this, but to pick out a few key ones, for a start, the games like this are a very high selling point in the games industry. Other games like this, for example World of Warcraft, have done incredibly well, and some games, even free-to-play games, for example Guild Wars, has done incredibly well and earned a lot of money. This game has unique features which aren't often found in games, for example the faction-based fighting and the area dominance. Microtransactions have gained a lot of money and we believe this will do the same for our game. League of Legends, for example, has, just from getting skins, has earned up to a couple $2 billion. And looking into a gap into the market, there aren't that many free-to-play games that have features such as these that are available to the public. So we believe this will be a very high-selling game. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to look at any more stuff, we have more down here. And is there any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions from the floor? Go for it.
Yeah, it's mainly just about the factions. You said if you dominate a faction, you won't get attacked by it, but if anyone else goes into it, they will. Say I'm playing with a friend and I've dominated. If they come in, will they be attacked, or will they be able to go in there without being attacked only?
It depends on the faction. Also, if you was playing with a friend in a different faction,
Yeah.
the likelihood is if you go into that area, they will get attacked. In the scenario that it wouldn't be, mainly focus on if you was doing your alliance missions or battles that allow for that specific area to be used for that short time.
Okay. Jack?
So if someone, so let's say like one faction got completely dominated and like lost all of their land, what would happen to that faction?
They'd still be within the game world and be allowed to reclaim territory, but the perk necessarily wouldn't help them, because the perk for the area dominance will only apply to the faction with the highest dominance in the land.
Go on, John.
The rebels and hunters, the rebels have heavier armor than the hunters, so why? And they both use like bows and stuff. So why would I pick a hunter over a rebel if I'm going to get killed using it?
The hunters will mainly be a more agile class, harder to hit, but with the rebels being heavier and that, their stats will focus more on heavy attacks rather than light, nimble attacks, whereas archer will be distance based.
The rebel will basically be a much slower, that will use much slower attacking. Even the crossbow will take a while to load up, and it'll have slow and heavy weapons, but it'll do a lot more damage, whereas the hunters would be quicker, would have a quicker, more rapid firing, and can fire and can kill from a lot further distance. But with that, it gives them chance to come towards them, because the rebels would have a higher, they basically tank their way to them, in a sense.
Any more questions from you guys? Go on, Ed.
Say for example at the start of the game I'm playing a ranger and I run out of arrows and I'm left with little weak daggers. Surely that's a bit of a class imbalance. How would you go about making sure that doesn't affect them so much?
I think the ability to be able to craft your own arrows out of things you would find, or having a large stock before you go out, knowing how much you have before you go and start fighting. So then if you run out, you'll have to like head back or find things to craft them on the way.
Along with that, there could be the potential that if you've killed an enemy, there's a chance that the arrow you've used can be recovered to use again.
Any more questions? Go on, Kieran.
You said that the DLC works like GTA, and that you can earn it as you know, you can earn money in game, right? You don't have to buy it. Well, if the game is free to play and you can earn the DLC, that means is there any exclusive for DLC? Like, is there any guaranteed income? Because if everyone could potentially earn it, then no one would ever pay any money. Wouldn't they?
The DLC itself will be purchasable and the items will be exclusive for the DLC. The in-game money they can earn, but it will be slow rate, and the microtransactions will allow them to get a bigger group of money at a shorter time frame.
Fair enough. Go for it, Ben.
You said about the durability of weapons and armour just being like a visual aspect. What about people playing on like lower settings, where all the polygons are lower and the generally texturised lower. So would that be really obvious? Or?
Yeah, so on a sword, it would just have spots of the rust and damage actually on the sword. It would just be lower quality and less detail.
And I think, as Ryan mentioned, there would be a small counter to the side to say of the durability of the weapon that you're using. And the armour would be easier to see because it would be the bigger part of the character. So.
I was hoping I can see you've got a Gantt chart on the board. If you could just briefly step us through some of the pre-production bits you've got. I know we've seen the storyboard and some of your concept art, but just mainly the Gantt chart and some of the research bits that you've got.
So on the Gantt chart, it's got market research and general stuff that you require there. It does include some of the concept art for the process, alongside with different areas of time management that we'd have to incorporate into the project itself. Top half is generally the pre-production stuff, and then decided as a general time frame that we could potentially use in the future. We've included production and post-production in there as well.
You consider contingency time?
We have considered some contingency time. Where we've got some of these holidays, we've decided we could possibly put the contingency just before the holiday or within the holiday itself.
Okay, very good. Andrew, do you have any questions?
Yes.
Go on.
So you're talking about the different kind of factions you can join, and then you're talking about secondary talents. I mean, so if I was playing a rogue, I could eventually get a secondary talent from the alchemist. It means I can heal. What about before that? How do the rogues heal? How do the hunters tank?
I think you start learning those before you actually go out and start fighting other players. So as you're learning how to play the game and you're learning to get your initial levels up, that's where you start learning a different set of skills. And I think after release of the game, we would look into having the ability of putting in a third set, a lot weaker than the other two, but to make it more diverse.
So I could start playing a rogue, but then potentially pick a healing skill straight off the bat, so I can obviously assist the team with all these alliances and stuff. One more as well, Ryan. Talking about the enemies, and you're talking about how they scale with the player. How does that mean? What do the enemies actually? Did the enemies change? So they just get stronger? I mean, if I was a max level player and I got killed by a wolf.
No, they are based within that area. So those areas have recommended level. If you go in there below it, those enemies will still be at that recommended level. They'll vary. If you go in below, you will.
So I wouldn't find a wolf in like the highest level area.
No.
Okay.
That would be pretty cool.
Unless it was a faction boss, because one of the faction bosses, the hunter, I believe, this was Steve's area, had a wolf as a pet that would help him fight.
Okay. Okay, I think we will again wrap you up short. Very well done. Thank you very much.